on September 15, 2017, a multi-billion-dollar masterpiece of engineering intentionally plunged into a gas giant to its fiery death. This is the spacecraft that died for science. Just quickly to mention, the claims made in the documentary and their sources are highlighted in the description. However, the visual depictions were done using AI. We are exploring better ways to generate video using AI and will continuously seek to improve the visual experience. Feel free to add a comment about what specifically you would like to see changed. When the Cassini spacecraft triumphantly arrived at the Saturnian system in the year 2004, it represented the absolute pinnacle of human ingenuity and international collaboration. Decades of meticulous planning culminated in this robotic explorer, designed to unveil the deepest secrets of a ringed world and its incredibly diverse family of moons. It was a massive, incredibly complex school bus-sized laboratory loaded with highly sophisticated instruments, venturing into a remote and unforgiving environment, completely transforming our understanding of the outer solar system. One of its primary targets was Rhea, a heavily cratered ancient world of ice and rock. This fascinating moon was originally discovered centuries earlier, in 1672, by the renowned Italian-French astronomer Giovanni Domenico Cassini, the brilliant namesake of our robotic explorer. For over 300 years, Rhea had remained little more than a tiny, mysterious speck of light in the lenses of earthbound telescopes, waiting for its distant mechanical descendant to finally arrive and reveal its true geological nature to the eagerly watching scientific community. The sheer scale of this icy body is monumental. Rhea stands proudly as the second largest moon of Saturn, overshadowed only by the colossal Titan. Furthermore, it ranks as the 9th largest moon in our entire solar system. Exploring such a massive, uncharted celestial object presented an irresistible scientific opportunity for the mission planners. Every observation promised to unlock new chapters in the violent, chaotic history of the early solar system, written directly across Rhea's battered surface. Yet, despite a long string of spectacular discoveries and flawless operational successes, this legendary mission was destined for a brutal, premeditated conclusion. The very scientists and engineers who nurtured this spacecraft for decades would ultimately become its executioners. Why would the brilliant minds at the space agency deliberately sentence their perfectly functional, historically successful scientific instrument to a sudden, violent incineration in the crushing atmospheric depths of an alien world? The journey toward that tragic fate actually began years earlier, amidst a string of unexpected revelations. In 2005, as Cassini performed a daring close proximity flyby of Rhea, its onboard sensors detected something entirely unprecedented and baffling. The spacecraft's highly sensitive instruments recorded a distinct, surprisingly symmetrical dip in the counts of energetic electrons trapped within the magnetic environment surrounding the icy moon. This bizarre anomaly immediately sent ripples of excitement and intense speculation through the entire mission control. In the vacuum of space around Saturn, energetic electrons constantly zip through the planet's massive magnetic field. However, when these fast-moving particles encounter solid matter, they are instantly absorbed, creating a localized void or shadow in the radiation belts. Cassini was flying precisely through one of these mysterious shadows near Rhea. The symmetrical nature of the electron depletion strongly suggested that some massive unseen structure was physically blocking the particles on both sides of the moon. This mathematical signature was incredibly compelling, pointing toward a singular, groundbreaking conclusion. Scientists initially interpreted this symmetrical dip in energetic electron counts as undeniable evidence of a dense, localized ring system orbiting directly around Rhea. If confirmed, this would have been an absolutely monumental discovery, the very first time a ring system had ever been found encircling a moon anywhere in the universe. The scientific community was suddenly buzzing with the thrilling prospect of a miniature, ringed world within a ringed world. The stakes were incredibly high, and the demand for visual proof became paramount. To verify this extraordinary hypothesis, the Cassini imaging team rapidly programmed the spacecraft to perform a series of dedicated follow-up observations. They meticulously pointed the high-resolution cameras directly at the region where the hypothetical rings should be, hoping to capture the faint glint of sunlight reflecting off millions of orbiting ice particles. The entire astronomical world waited with bated breath for the defining photographs. However, science is often a cruel master, demanding absolute empirical verification. When the highly anticipated images were finally downlinked to Earth and carefully processed, the results were incredibly stark. Cassini found absolutely no visual evidence of any material orbiting the Moon. The space surrounding Rhea was completely, undeniably empty. The spectacular hypothesis of a ringed moon was thoroughly dismantled by the cold, hard reality of the photographs, leading to the definitive scientific consensus that there are no rings. While Rhea's invisible rings proved to be an illusion, another moon was about to deliver a discovery so profound it would alter the trajectory of the entire mission. As Cassini turned its instruments toward Enceladus, a tiny, highly reflective world, it witnessed something utterly spectacular and completely unpredicted. The spacecraft discovered massive, towering plumes of water ice, violently shooting straight out from deep fissures at the Moon's south pole, blasting a continuous spray of material directly into space. These spectacular geysers were not just a stunning visual anomaly, they were a geological smoking gun. The plumes of water ice shooting from Enceladus clearly indicated the presence of a vast, global subsurface ocean of liquid water, hidden just beneath the Moon's icy crust. For the first time in human history, scientists were actively sampling the pristine waters of an alien ocean, tasting the chemical makeup of a world located over 1 billion kilometers away from our home planet. Cassini's mass spectrometers meticulously analyzed the frozen spray, detecting the presence of organic molecules, volatile gases, and the unmistakable chemical signatures of active hydrothermal vents on the dark ocean floor. These are the exact same conditions that foster rich, complex ecosystems in the deepest, darkest trenches of Earth's oceans. The implications of these hydrothermal vents were absolutely staggering, transforming a simple mapping mission into a profound search for extraterrestrial habitability across the vast distances of the outer solar system. With the revelation of a potentially habitable environment, the rules of exploration drastically changed. We were no longer just looking at dead rocks. We were peering into a pristine, potentially life-bearing sanctuary. The scientific community realized that Enceladus possessed the 3 critical ingredients for life: liquid water, organic chemistry, and a continuous energy source. This astounding realization fundamentally shifted the mission's ultimate priorities. Protecting this incredibly precious environment from any form of accidental biological contamination became an absolute, overriding imperative. The stakes of the mission had escalated far beyond simple planetary mapping. The spacecraft was now an active guardian of a potentially habitable alien ecosystem. Every maneuver, every flyby, and every orbital adjustment had to be meticulously calculated to ensure that this fragile, pristine world remained completely untouched by any terrestrial influence. The discovery of the Enceladus plumes was the pivotal moment that sealed Cassini's ultimate fate, setting the stage for the most dramatic and controversial decision in spaceflight history. As the years of continuous exploration turned into a decade, a hidden, inescapable crisis was slowly brewing deep within the spacecraft's internal plumbing. Cassini was running perilously low on its critical supply of hydrazine fuel, the vital propellant strictly required to maintain attitude control and execute precise orbital maneuvers. Without this precious chemical fuel, the spacecraft would become entirely unresponsive, rapidly transforming from a highly controlled, scientific masterpiece into a massive, unpredictable, 2-ton piece of dead space debris, hurtling blindly and dangerously through the complex Saturnian system at tens of thousands of kilometers per hour. An uncontrolled dead spacecraft wandering aimlessly through the Saturnian system represented an unacceptable catastrophic risk to everything the mission had uncovered. Over thousands or millions of years, the chaotic gravitational poles of Saturn and its numerous moons would inevitably perturb Cassini's orbit, leading to a high-speed, uncontrolled collision. The statistical probability of an accidental impact with one of the moons grew dangerously high. The mission planners were forced to confront a terrifying scenario. What if the dead spacecraft eventually crashed directly into one of the very worlds they were so desperately trying to study and understand? The core of this terrifying problem was a concept known strictly as planetary protection. Before launching in 1997, Cassini was assembled in extremely clean rooms, but it was never completely, thoroughly sterilized. Hardy, radiation-resistant microbes from Earth could have easily survived the long, freezing journey trapped deep within the spacecraft's warm, insulated electronics. If Cassini were to accidentally crash into a pristine environment, those invasive terrestrial microbes could potentially survive, rapidly multiply, and permanently contaminate a completely untouched alien biosphere, destroying our only pristine chance to discover genuine, independent extraterrestrial life. The two environments at the highest risk of catastrophic contamination were the absolute crown jewels of the Saturnian system. The mission team was explicitly determined to meticulously protect potentially habitable moons like Enceladus, with its warm, salty subsurface ocean, and Titan, which possesses a thick, complex atmosphere and massive lakes of liquid methane. A crash on either of these incredibly sensitive worlds could ruin decades of future astrobiological research. The international scientific community simply could not allow an invasive terrestrial species to aggressively colonize a potentially life-bearing ocean hidden deep within the outer solar system. Faced with the terrifying prospect of accidental biological contamination, the flight directors made a highly dramatic, incredibly painful choice. The only absolutely guaranteed method to eliminate the risk of an unguided collision was to completely destroy the spacecraft while they still maintained positive navigational control. The engineers meticulously calculated a radical, unprecedented trajectory that would deliberately steer the probe directly into the crushing atmospheric depths of the gas giant itself. Cassini was formally sentenced to a fiery execution to ensure the absolute purity of the very worlds it had so brilliantly illuminated for us. This daring, meticulously planned suicide mission was officially christened the Grand Finale. It was not strictly designed as a simple disposal maneuver. It was deliberately engineered as the most incredibly aggressive, scientifically rewarding phase of the entire long expedition. Instead of quietly retreating to a safe, distant graveyard orbit, the aging Cassini would be aggressively commanded to dive directly into the narrow, incredibly hazardous gap between the planet's violent cloud tops and the innermost edge of its spectacular ring system. This was an unprecedented, highly dangerous, high-stakes gamble, pushing the magnificent machine far beyond its original structural limitations. The grand finale explicitly involved diving forcefully between Saturn and its immense rings, plunging directly into an entirely unexplored, highly dangerous region of space where no human-made object had ever dared to travel. This narrow gap, merely 2,000 kilometers wide, was a terrifying orbital zone completely filled with microscopic, hypervelocity dust particles entirely capable of instantly shredding the spacecraft's delicate, unprotected scientific instruments. By aggressively executing 22 consecutive, heart-stopping plunges through this incredibly perilous chasm, Cassini effectively transformed itself from a cautious, distant observer into a daring, high-speed atmospheric probe, radically redefining our fundamental understanding of the massive gas giant. Every single time the aging Cassini dangerously threaded this incredibly tight cosmic needle, it gathered completely unprecedented, extraordinarily high-resolution data about the planet's complex internal gravitational structure and the true mass of its majestic, icy rings. The brave spacecraft skimmed so incredibly close to the roaring cloud tops that it physically tasted the complex, swirling chemical soup of the upper atmosphere, continuously beaming massive amounts of priceless telemetry directly back to the anxious scientists waiting on Earth. The data collected during these terrifying high-speed dives definitively solved decades-old astronomical mysteries regarding the precise rotational speed of the planet's deeply hidden, churning metallic core. As the battered spacecraft successfully completed its 22nd and final agonizing plunge through the dangerous gap, the remaining hydrazine fuel was almost entirely irrevocably depleted. The final, irreversible command sequence was successfully transmitted across the vast emptiness of the solar system, permanently locking the tiny thrusters wide open to desperately fight against the rapidly increasing atmospheric drag. Cassini was aggressively pushed into a steep, inescapable ballistic trajectory, diving headlong into the massive, swirling yellow storms of the northern hemisphere. The faithful robotic explorer was rapidly accelerating toward its guaranteed violent destruction at over 113,000 kilometers per hour. On the fateful morning of September 15, 2017, the historic mission reached its spectacular, fiery climax. The fragile spacecraft violently slammed into the rapidly thickening layers of Saturn's upper atmosphere, instantly encountering massive, crushing aerodynamic forces. The onboard flight computers desperately fought to keep the critical high-gain antenna precisely pointed directly at Earth, furiously transmitting every last valuable byte of atmospheric data back to the deeply emotional control room. For an agonizingly brief moment, the resilient machine brilliantly overpowered the raging alien storm, proudly serving its fundamental scientific purpose right up until the very last possible millisecond of its operational existence. Overwhelmed by the immense friction of the rapidly thickening atmospheric gases, the spacecraft's vital components began to catastrophically fail. First, the protective thermal blankets violently ripped away, followed immediately by the rapid melting of the delicate aluminum structures. Within mere seconds, the entire incredibly complex machine violently burned up, completely vaporizing in Saturn's massive atmosphere. Because the vast expanse of space is a perfect vacuum and no sound waves can travel through it, this catastrophic destruction occurred in absolute haunting silence. Realistic space shots should never have sound effects, and the fiery demise of our greatest mechanical explorer completely lacked any dramatic acoustic fanfare. In the profound, absolute silence that permanently followed the violent vaporization of the spacecraft, the international scientific community paused to collectively mourn the intentional destruction of their beloved robotic masterpiece. The busy mission control room, usually bustling with frantic energy and loud commands, instantly fell into a deep, highly emotional stillness as the final radio telemetry signal completely flatlined on their massive monitoring screens. Decades of incredibly rigorous, dedicated daily work had culminated in this exact tragic moment, leaving behind a profound sense of both devastating loss and overwhelming intellectual triumph among the exhausted, tearful flight engineers. The profound question of why a perfectly functional machine was deliberately sentenced to a fiery execution is finally answered by its ultimate, noble sacrifice. Cassini was deliberately steered into Saturn's churning atmosphere to violently burn up for one incredibly vital reason: to absolutely protect potentially habitable moons like Enceladus and Titan from invasive Earth microbes. The dedicated mission planners knowingly destroyed their magnificent, beloved creation to guarantee that our relentless pursuit of knowledge would never inadvertently poison the pristine alien ecosystems we so desperately hope to explore in the future. It was a profound act of planetary scientific integrity. The legacy of this spectacularly successful mission extends far beyond the hundreds of thousands of breathtaking photographs and the massive terabytes of invaluable scientific data. The spacecraft fundamentally reshaped our basic understanding of where extraterrestrial life might successfully hide within our solar system. By definitively revealing the warm, active, chemical-rich subsurface oceans of tiny icy moons, Cassini completely rewrote the astrobiological textbooks. The mission proved that the essential ingredients for life are not exclusively restricted to warm, rocky planets orbiting tightly around their host stars, but can also thrive in the freezing, dark outer edges of the solar system. The enduring story of Cassini is a spectacular testament to human curiosity and our relentless, unyielding drive to meticulously explore the vast, great unknown. We built an incredibly complex mechanical eye, hurled it across 1 billion kilometers of empty freezing space, and allowed it to completely transform our fundamental view of the cosmos, only to deliberately destroy it to protect the magnificent secrets it uncovered. As we look up at the bright yellowish point of light that is Saturn in our night sky, we must forever remember the brave, silent machine that now rests permanently within its violent, majestic clouds.
If you enjoy this content and want to see more, please consider subscribing. A quick tap on the like button also helps us learn what topics you like best. Thank you for watching this video, and see you in the next one.